Okay, we're finishing up our look at 19th century religious movements with the continuation of the Laymen's Prayer Revival of 1858. And as we just mentioned, there'll be a test tomorrow over all of the 19th century religious movements, beginning with the Second Great Awakening on through to the Laymen's Prayer Revival. We've looked at some of the things that occurred, what brought it about. Now let's look at the ending of it. Yes, applause. The end came in 1860 through primarily the beginning of war, and at least in the North. In the North, the revival ceased for the most part. There was some continuation in some of the armies, but primarily it ceased there. Prior to open hostilities, the revival swept the South as it had the North. So as the war's beginning, the revival is going through the South. During the war, the revival continued in the Southern Army while ceasing altogether in the North. Over 150,000 converts were registered in the Confederate Army. And it's a wonderful story in itself. I have a book written by a chaplain of the Confederate Army in which he recounts how the revival proceeded through the Confederate Army. And there are a couple of reasons for that. One might be that in the Confederate Army there were many more generals who were Christians, committed Christians. In the Northern Army, you're hard-pressed to find generals that are, with the exception maybe of McClellan, which caused him to be reticent to shed blood by going into battle, which was not something that was attractive to Lincoln. But in the South, you had strong Christian men like Robert E. Lee and Thomas Jackson and others, and they encouraged their men to read the Bible and to commit themselves to Christ. If you read the account about the revival that took place in the Southern armies, you find over and over again chaplains sending letters to Bible societies, to the Army. Please send us more Bibles. Our men need Bibles. They need reading material. And there's just a constant asking for those things. There was a strong desire in the Army for that. And so this revival continues on in the Confederate Army after it ceased in the war. And that's the end of the Laymen's Prayer Revival of 1858. And just like most of our awakenings, revivals, it ended about as suddenly as it began. So it comes to an end. After the war, there are other issues, other problems that we'll talk about once we get to the Civil War. But the revival that takes place in 1858 almost seems like a preparation by God for the conflict that's going to come. There were many, many people that were saved, that came to Christ during this awakening of 1858 that would die in this war. All right, any questions about the Laymen's Prayer Revival? Again, the distinctive is that it is not run by any particular churches or pastors. It is run almost entirely by simple laymen who say, let's get together and pray. And they did. Any questions? All right, in the time that we have left then, if you want to quiz each other, you may. If you find it better to simply look over the materials, and that may be the best thing to do initially, because I'm sure you've forgotten some things that we talked about back in the Second Great Awakening. So let's go through your materials, remind yourself of that, of those things, and then quiz each other and prepare for a test tomorrow. All right.